just to be official, let's, if you don't mind, let's call it.
Commissioner Anderson?
Here.
Commissioner Cannell?
Here.
Commissioner Rising?
Here.
Commissioner Robinson?
Here.
Commissioner Simmons?
Here.
Commissioner Williams?
Here.
And Commissioner Thompson is going to be absent that, I think.
The minutes of the last meeting on June 21st, 2 months ago, were electronically mailed to you. I need a motion for approval.
Second.
So moved. A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. All right. Resolution 1275, authorizing and approving the transfer of certain surplus real property of the electric division of KUB located at 1862 Island Home Avenue to the city of Knoxville.
Commissioners, those of you who have been on the board a while, I'll remind you that this matter came up several years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. It deals with street improvements in the Island Home area, and in order to facilitate that, we are doing a property swap with the city and the county and enable them to be able to straighten out a road. I will recognize Mark Walker for him to give you the details. This is coming back to you this time because it was an on project and then an off project, and now it's back an on project.
Commissioners, as Ms. Roach mentioned, KUB has been approached by City of Knoxville staff regarding their desire to acquire a KUB-owned parcel of property located off Island Home Avenue. And it is for the purpose of facilitating a future road realignment project in that vicinity. Prior to your consideration of Resolution 1275, which does authorize the transfer of the property to the city, I did want to go over some of the particulars of the proposed property transfer. And I know you're used to me showing lots of numbers. Today I've got several maps to show you. So a little bit of a change for me. The first map, and this is the simple one, reflects the total amount of property that KUB owns at the Island Home, off Island Home Avenue, and that is approximately 6 acres. And we purchased that property really on two separate parcels, 2 separate acquisitions. One goes all the way back to the 1940s. A small portion of that property was purchased for about $300, shows you the time. In the mid-1970s, we purchased the largest portion of that at a cost of about $11,000. And you can see today that our Island Home electric substation sits on the southern end of that property, but we do have quite a bit of excess around, in particular right in here. So that's sort of setting the stage. There's 2 other pieces of information reflected on this map I want to bring to your attention because they are relevant. One is, you can see Hillcrest Healthcare, Hillcrest South, sits on this property, but all this property right through here is owned by Knox County, and they lease that to Hillcrest Healthcare, Hillcrest South. So keep that in mind. Also, this is the road here, Hillwood Avenue, which is north of Hillcrest, that the city would like to realign at some point in the future. So that's sort of setting the stage. Now, add 2 more components to the map here. Starting off with the bold red here, that is really, go up Hillwood Avenue, it will branch off. This is, at least at this point in time, what city engineering is thinking will be the proposed new path of Hillwood Avenue. It would branch off, then come over property that's owned by the county, property that's owned by KUB, and connect here with Island Home Avenue at that point in time. About the intersection of South Haven and Island Home. That would be, at least at this time, the proposed new path for Hillwood. The green shaded property area here is again owned by Knox County, and the city has approached Knox County, said we would like to have that property, acquire that property from you for purposes of this road realignment project. What the county said, we'll be happy to convey it to you, but instead of you paying us for us, what we would like is property in return for that, because Hillcrest Healthcare that sits here had looked at possible expansion on this portion of the property. And if that goes away and becomes city property, Hillcrest still needs something to potentially expand on. So the county said, we'll convey this to you if in turn you'll give us some property down to south. Well, of course, city doesn't own that property. KUB owns that property, thus we enter into the picture in this particular part of the transaction. And the city approached us and said, does KUB have anything that's available down here that you could sell to us, and that we could do a property swap with the county so everybody could get what they wanted. So it is this in specific 1.3 acre parcel portion of our overall 6 acre property here that they are interested in and have requested that we transfer to them. Our engineering department did an assessment of it, and we determined that it's not needed for electric system operations. It's not needed for any of our utility system operations. We also had it recently appraised, and the appraised value is $31,000. So what we're proposing is to transfer this to the city in exchange for $31,000 that they would pay us. Then the city would convey this parcel to the county for use by Hillcrest, and then in turn the county would convey to the city this 2 acre portion up here that they could use for the future road project. So we're really facilitating the exchange of properties between the city and the county, because the city doesn't own anything down here, we do. And we get $31,000 out of it, or the appraised value. Okay. Is that clear?
Do I have to convey the other part of the line?
That's a good question. Right up here you might ask is, as you just did, why do we not need to convey that or transfer that to the city at this time? 2 points there. One is, this project is probably several years down the road, and they're not really sure what the exact path of the realignment is going to be, though that is what they've shared with us at this point in time. So they don't know how much of our property we would need right at that point in time. Also, the area in green, they're more concerned about that. It's more of an urgent matter for them, because they've heard in the past that the county might sell all of this property to a private entity and basically privatize Hillcrest. Hillcrest would no longer be a private operator, would come in, and all that would be private property. It could be more cumbersome and costly for them to acquire the property at that point in time. So the project is years off, but they want to go ahead and get this as soon as possible. And in order to make that happen, the county commission's already adopted a resolution last September, which basically lays all this out, that they will convey this to the city if this is made available to them, basically. And it's made available to them through us selling it to the city. So, clear as mud. So much for simple property transfers.
I'm not familiar with this area very much. How do we access our substation off of that? Windland down there?
Road right here. Currently, I believe it's an entrance point right here at Island Home in South Haven, and then we come down to the substation. That's the current entry point.
So if you had a guess on the next future transaction after this first one, is it going to be that whole upper portion there?
If nothing changed, we would sell approximately this area to them right here. In other words, we wouldn't have the abandoned property.
Still keep some kind of proper access?
Yes, there would still be access, obviously, to the substation, but we would require that, of course.
I'm curious, why are they moving this road?
Apparently, they view it, and I won't, it's my understanding, they view this as a risk here with this curve, and they would prefer to have this curve. But I have not set in on particular discussions with city engineering, so I'm not sure as far as all the details underlying that.
I also think that Hillwood intersecting up there's a little bit of a problem.
Island Home, right there.
Yes.
You said there was no additional, we would not need additional space for the substation. Is that also kind of projected down into the future as well?
That is correct, and that's why we had engineering do that assessment, to see if there would be any need to use that property for expansion, and the answer is no.
At any time?
At any time, yes, sir.
I think the only thing that would concern me is if they do privatize, which seems like that is kind of the way. We're cutting off some of our insulation off there. For $31,000, I'm not sure. I mean, is our hands tied to do this?
No, I think the board can do what they, in their wisdom, do. but the truth is, we've evaluated it, and, we have substations up against residential areas and commercial areas, other places, so I don't think
This
it's
would not
that.
be unique in that regard.
This is not that compact compared to where we have some other substations, so.
However, they might choose to use that property will give us a little bit of buffer as well, simply because of the slopes and the terrain out there.
Very
It's
steep,
pretty
yeah.
steep from the edge of our substation fence up to the top of the ridge there where Hillcrest sits. So they would not be able to build too close to us simply because of the slope constraints.
So that land is generally unusable, pretty much.
Is there anything existing structure besides our substation on the this land? or-
Not to my knowledge, other than the road that extends down to the substations.
The area between the Hillcrest building and our property is primarily parking.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion, second. Anything, Commissioner, have any more questions? Any public comment or question about this resolution?
We never voted on this, it never came to us for a vote.
It's never been before.
We gave you a presence report on it, but then it was asked to be pulled from the agenda. so.
It was in a similar form. It was
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly the same.
Selling a
one.
part of the possibility.
It was the exact same form.
Exactly.
That second piece is not gonna be $31,000, that's the key. Okay, no public comment, Mr. Coley, please call the roll.
Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Fennell?
Aye.
Commissioner Rising?
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson?
Aye.
Commissioner Simmons? Commissioner Williams?
Aye.
Of course, Commissioner Thompson is absent. So resolution 1275 passes.